Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of TalkSports, where we speak with the movers and shakers in sports, the sportsmen and sportswomen, and the administrators, past and current. This week, our guest is former president of the then Grenada Amateur Athletic and Cycling Association, the GAA&CA, a former national athlete himself, and one who considers himself as controversial at times because of his openness and street talk. Well, George Goatie Robinson joins us live from his home and what I call a mini sports museum in the nation's capital, St. George's. And I welcome Mr. George Goatie Robinson. Good afternoon, Mr. Robinson.
Good afternoon, Bascom, and to all your viewers and listeners. Well, as you know how difficult it was to get me. So now that I'm here, I'm all yours.
Okay, well, nice to know. And how you have been coping? How things, especially with the pandemic?
Well, with the pandemic, I'm cool. In actual fact, it's a time when there's so much to learn. And for me, it has been good because the few friends that I have, and when I say friends, I'm friendly to nearly everybody I know, but I have very good friends around me and family both at home and abroad. We have a situation just as for disaster planning. This is just an occasion whereby it brings the family closer, especially now where we have this sort of being able to use the internet, the FaceTime, the whatever it is. I'm just there holding on, but there's always some family connection, something that we always was close. But I think it was one thing that COVID brought. It brought us together more with regards to communicating, knowing that each and everyone is well. So that is one of the more positive things for me. Health-wise, I'm okay. Home, going to the beach in the afternoons, playing my cards. I haven't gotten the time to go out fishing as I normally would do. So all my friends in Guave and Whitegate and Grand Roy, and so there, sort of people are missing.
Okay, well, good to know, Goatie, and good to know you're still involved in community activities as well.
Well, from a community standpoint, is one of the areas. They say a community build a child. A child must respect the community, and that's one of the proud things that I'm so proud to be, brought up in the St. Paul's community, whereby for over 60 years, I think the community has been there for me, and I've been there, I suppose. If I take out a little 15, 20, I suppose I should be there at least 40 years of being actively involved in community building and community development. In actual fact, everything we normally point to comes from the community. Outside of PBC, everything for me, my whole life, you could call it, is St. Paul's. People have their qualms and whatever it is, but we've always been able, as a community, to share family-wise and otherwise.
Yeah, it seems as if you're probably part of the heartbeat of the community of St. Paul's. But we'll go ahead.
No, we are. To tell you, I suppose as family heartbeat. Well, yeah, but I'm always the wild one in the family, so I established that. And even one of my siblings hear me, I saved them from saying that. Is that I've always been on the go.
Okay, well, good to know, because we have quite a lot to get through between now and 3 o'clock. Because let's start off with your early days, Goatie. You said that you started, competitiveness in terms of track and field, because that's where a lot of folks really know Goatie Robinson, involved in track and field as an athlete, and then as an administrator, and even as an official up to recent as probably 2019. But how you got involved in sports in particular in Grenada? Because I'm certain track and field wasn't only your mainstay in terms of sports.
Well, my sporting career definitely began in PBC. And fortunately, at the point in time, a group of us that entered PBC, you would say in 67, 66, 67, 68, guys that went to school at that point in time. PBC was one of the so-called, kind of like Westmoreland is now. It used to say a white boys' school. We used to wear white pants and white shirt until you get Form 2, you wore short pants, and that sort of stigma that they had on the school. GBSS was always that school with I mean, the two schools as we met it, they competed in sports and academics. All boys sports being played. I think the actual fact the intercall started in 40 with CBSS and PBC in competition and was later joined by SAS under Mr. Julian. Anyway, that is part of the history. That is what I've learned. I think I have some documentation that could confirm that. But me being a student in 1967, by then we were in the call, we started participating, my friends. I mean, there are a group of young people, most of them are either doctors, teachers, administrators, or whatever it is, all parts of the world. I'm one of the few that is still here remaining in Grenada. A few of them have returned, but we in PBC had the challenge of making sure that we would be as good as GBSS, and that would only be in sports, because as far as we were concerned, college extinction was there for academics. They had a very good cadet corps, but academics was what PBC was seen as by the rest of the country. GBSS was the sport, the academics, and everything. We decided we would change that. And by 1977, our first intercall, that people like myself, the Lane brothers, George Prime, Cecil Joseph, I mean, I could name my classmates throughout, as we were prep sub-juniors, some was prep, some was sub-juniors, and we had very good senior teams. We won 1967, and from there, we went off. So then also, the school system was very well organized. I must indeed say, all the secondary schools, during my 5-6 years at PBC, all secondary schools had a cricket structure, a football structure, a track and field structure, a tennis structure, because some of the guys, as you know, who had played lawn tennis, the Rennicks, and so they were top 10. They had a cycling team. PBC had a good cycling team with the guys. So we were, the school was well involved. And one of the things I can boast about my basic discipline study is, first of all, the uniform that you had to wear. You could not go to school with a cream shirt and a white pants. You had to be white pants and a white shirt. You had to play sports, whether you played football or otherwise. You had to have a new gear to wear the next day, otherwise you don't go to school. And so there was a level of discipline that went into the sport. And it was not a matter of, you had to compete for your position from junior league to senior league in all the various sports that we played. I think that class of 66, 67 really started a new movement with regards to PBC moving away as seen as a school of just academics to both sport and academics together. And I think that has basically my routine, and with all the activities that they ensured. I remember as a young PBC, I went, the whole community, parents and otherwise, coming to see you in any sport. Later, when I went to play with Atoms in football, because when we left school in 72, to make a tongue team, and you come from, they used to call places like St. Paul's Country. Yeah,
Really?
no, yes. St. Paul's Country, I could remember a certain game playing Bob Hope and I fooling around. Atlas playing. That time the hot team was um, 100, newly on the plug, and have Borgan, Brim, and Boboy, and them. Bad, like, I mean, all out of coming out of the August Utah program. But to make one of these, as young guys, to make one of these teams and you're not from St. George's, it was always a pride. So I had it fairly good.
Well, I don't want to get into that early banter, because it starts coming up already in terms of Toro is saying that yeah,
Toro was a journalist yesterday, and
the first no, but he said the first mistake you made in your life would have been attending PBC and not GBSS, So
anyway, I want to respond to Toro on that. Thank you very much, Toro, for that observation. As I would say, I have some good GBSS friends. I would say like Michael Pope and Sauti, and so with regard to track, and these guys were bad. But I know how we came. I mean, some of my best friends, Val Adams, Eros Rapier, and so, who was just maybe a year old or whatever it is. Or sometimes I didn't realize I was older than some of these guys, very much so. And so when I went to BBC, my other brother, Dudley O'Brien, went to GBSS, and I felt I was the king. I went to the right one. So tell Toro that, put that in the pipe and smoke it. You know it comes from home.
All right. Well, that's good enough. The country talk always motivated me. All right, Hazel. Hazel always locked on. Hazel and Regis Buckles. But Goatie, in those early years, how was the competition like? Especially in track and field. I mean, I know you were involved in, football as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of track and field, which was your mainstay?
Yeah, because track and field is a part of my life. I remember my brother doing a thing and saying that tennis is life. He's now in New York. And I always said, for me, track and field is my life. Because as a junior athlete, as a PBC athlete, I did grow. Specifically in the jumps. And we represented our school with a heart. I have to draw the reference. Sorry. The way you see teams are managed and the way you see teams train and the like, I don't buy that the equipment and the medium that they have to use. What it basically was is that as team, we were all brothers and we shared. So I was one of the lesser fortunate ones. I don't call people poor and people. We're all equal because as our teachers would have told us in the teams and in the coaches, you all have special talent. Everybody can be doctors, everybody can be lawyers, no can be doing, but you can do simple jobs. Simple jobs. I won't call the names of some of them that they said, but your future will depend on who you are and how you come out of it. And this was basically, I think, all the guys around my age that was my classmates throughout, they remain my friends up to today. And this is basically where my whole being is. So from school, I remember us in the 70s, mid-70s, that would have been late 70s, we started being Whitsuntide Games. Whitsuntide Games was the Maca event, the Maca event, I could say to you, in the OECS and even the wider Caribbean region. We had cyclists and top athletes, the Hazley Crawfords, to name it. We had the older athletes like Mr. Clouden and Mr. Francis and who went out before and set the base so that we had from Suriname, from Trinidad and Tobago, from Barbados, even as far as Jamaica, they would come to Grenada for the Whitsuntide Games. So we as junior athletes and coming out, we always wanted to be part of that. Our school did not allow us to compete if in Whitsuntide, if the school had a team in at Whitsuntide. The other thing is Whitsuntide always fell when we were doing exams. I could remember the Lane brothers, Joe Cummins and so, leaving, we had to have to play a football game or there's a track meet going on. You go first, you do your exam, and you're ready to come and compete at your best. So we learned to mix both schoolwork, where there was no compromise, and all of most of us track and field. So when we didn't compete and we left school, some went to Striders. I think it was with Tony Henry, one of our better coaches that we've had. The other went with Jetstar, that was Gordon Ward and others. And that was our brain. So from step to step, then we went on to the character. It was the same coaches, the same managers we had until we ourselves got into officiating and coaching. And I am proud to say that we they were our mentors. And up to today, a lot of these people, even could remember I am being Mr. Clouden boss and Mr. Clouden with regards to head of officiating or doing whatever it is. And he's so humble. I mean, Mr. Clouden I know, but he would never call me good. He would say, Mr. Robinson, and then I would have to encourage him. Everybody don't know my name. Call me so. Things like that. So it was also the mentoring that we got. So from one stage, we went in, and then there was the character, and you move from character to senior, and that was the way it was.
Okay, but during those years, and I will call it probably formative years in particular, who are some of the other you know, well, household names you will probably want to associate athletics with? I mean, we have grown up with the likes of the Donald Pierre and others and things, but the Goatie Robinson in the 80s, especially the late 80s and into the 90s, were then into more or less administration, because I think by then you would have retired from active track and field, although you used to try a thing now and again, But yeah, but who are those athletes you probably will want to make mention of during those early formative years?
Well, I would say there were definitely in my time a few standouts. I would know of those before. I think even with people like Mr. Robbie and so were competing. Up to today, before Kirani, and I sticking at Kirani, with all due respect to Francis and all others who would have competed at Olympics and for hundreds and the like, they are specialists. They were specialists for 100, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, if I think the best overall athlete I've seen in Caribbean, outside of Juan Torino, was that guy Donald Pierre. I would think in the late 70s, 80s, in the 70s, 80s, Donald could have won from the marathon to the 200. I am put him in the one because they were always quick, fast. And if he decided to tumble you down when he meet with the smaller hopes, he would do it too. So for outstanding, he was the most outstanding. I remember my days in PBC or whatever it is. I sort of would have been. I recognized as a PBC athlete and member of the Grenada character team and the like. I think I became outstanding and well known, more or less, the last 2 or 3 competitions that I did in Grenada, which would have been around 81, 82. but they were outstanding people. I would always remember the Oliver Lake, high jumper, long jumper. I just loved to see that guy. He was so smooth. He was so good with regards to jump that I ended up wanting to be a jumper. There was Dr. Dunstan Campbell, who I think was mentored by people like policeman. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name now. But he also made the national team with young guys. Lawrence, I think, was his name, right? Michael Pope. I'm talking about people like Dunstan and Lake and who went to GBSS that I knew. And then I remember doing some research about the ladies. You would have Edith Wilson from SAS. I suppose you would have heard a lot. People, one of the things that I think I was trying to, but again, remember, I never worked in sport. I always had a job. I always was a volunteer. So I really didn't have time to meet or know some of these people. I heard about Paul Pierre from SAS. There was Ellen, I think of Belgrave from high school. There would have been before times. Um, Evelyn Maitland, he had passed during the 1983. There was Michael Pope. But everybody know the Lane brothers, my brothers, Raymond and Roy. The girls, we had Michelle Hercules, and Michelle was on the program, so she could have spoken about the Esther Williams and so. And then when I went into the coaching sector of it, there were very outstanding athletes that I have even traveled with from Carifta. If I should just basically name a few people like Esther Williams, but just to everybody know. Um, the Morris Bull Williams, Jenny Boca, there was another Esther Williams. And then I must say, one of the highlights of my time in as president chairman was that of when we had the OECS games. We had a cadre of athletes, and most of them came from St. Andrews and the like. Yeah? I was born living in town. I could remember Trevor Modest, George, you know George I'm talking about, Devon George, Eugene Licorice, my dear friend Dr. Walter Simmons, he was a SAS athlete, Little Dubisset, Kenneth Augustine. These are people, and even the last one of them that I still have special, you know, respect for, and very Grenadian, few Grenadians might know him, is a young man, Nigel John, whom basically I coached, and was the first, I think he was the first Wesley College athlete to win a medal, and it was a gold medal in the 400 meters. And if anybody had bet me that year, I told them there was a dark horse in the race. I think it must have been 92 or 93. And it's a Wesley College boy that will win the 400 meters. So said, so done. He is now competing in the Masters, World Masters game and doing quite well. Up to last year, you see the shirt? I was at the World Master regional meet and promised that I would have been with them, or two or three of them, at this year's Masters that's supposed to have been in Toronto. Because I've met people that heard about me, know about me from the region of administration, and they're still involved in Masters athletics. So you see, it. I've been one of the lucky ones. And I suppose being at home, remaining at home most of my life, and being involved in especially administration, I life was made pretty easy for me. Also in when it was 79 or 80, when I wanted to be really thought about going into sporting, coaching, even at one point in time, physiotherapy, I was one of the four persons selected. In those days, there were OS scholarships, 3 months, I think 4 months scholarships sponsored by the OAS. Um, and it was just at the PRG time. And myself as track and field, Pussy Redhead as basketball, deceased Kenny Upson, and the forever faithful Tyrone Harbin. Or, Tyrone was like father, brother, everything to us. We went to Mexico, and basically, that is when I actually turned, according to Glenn Mill, who was bowl coach, a real athlete, because I was the one always used as a scapegoat. And when I came back to Grenada, I was running. I never knew I could have run like that. So there's a lot of fortunate opportunities I had in my sporting career, and I didn't do too badly with regards to coaching, because in those days, example, when Conrad returned with the most experience, being trained and as an athlete in Cuba, we always shared knowledge. I mean, just as we all learn today, if you want to be involved, you have to keep abreast with technique. However, I
Mhm.
always say the basic, you could have as much, you have to be in somewhere like the States. If you live in any of the small islands and you don't get an opportunity to go out there and everything, you could be very good and reach standards of qualifying for CAC and for Olympics, because we have done that. It is still there. The talent is still here in Grenada. What I think we do now, instead of that sort of community of athletes, coaches and managers are selfish. They want their athletes. They want to be the star. Well, with all due respect and without prejudice, I make these comments, because
Okay.
I'm off the grid in a while. But to me, that is what it looked like. That is what, I do not know how much bonding I am in intercall, and the kind of bonding I see is not the bonding we had that made us great. Of
Okay.
both.
Just let me see. Hold on. Let me see if we can get. I think I may have. Let me see if this is. Okay. I thought I was getting on to that of what's his name? You said Nigel. His name is actually Nigel John, right?
I think so. That only if I have it wrong, but I,
It,
yeah, and I,
it, it, it's John, right? Not yeah. I just want to make sure it is not and it's not because we know of Nigel Jones, but you're speaking about Nigel John of
yeah,
Wesley College.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah. That's in there, right?
yeah, yeah. And that's him competing last year at the NACAC, the regional masters event. I think he participates in the over 45 category. And he was initially on the Canadian team. And when we got together and his Jamaican friends, and so, yeah, why compete for Canada? They don't recognize the skill, the problem with it. So you
Mhm.
have a nation that you could represent. And he has been
Okay.
representing us proudly. Last year, he won, I think, the one, the two, and the four in the over 45 category. And mind you, I was amazed to see the real big boys with the money not there. But a lot of the old American good athletes, great athletes, they participate in this because they pay their way, and that is their retirement. I mean, I met some guys and them, that is the greatest retirement they have, having
Well,
these games.
what is? I mean, looking at you, Goatee, at least your age, your involvement, you're looking as as an athlete yourself. Okay,
Just,
I don't know what is causing that, but
just me.
but I'm saying with all that's going on, Goatee, and I think there are quite a number of folks like you that are still on the healthy side, taking physical fitness very serious. What's
Yeah.
about having some Masters Championship like how Nigel John is participating
First thing, don't judge the book by the cover.
in?
Anyway, you see, a few years, and Nigel got into it with some encouragement for me. You remember once I was in Canada where I could, and yeah, and Nigel and a few Jamaican friends, and I think a friend from St. Vincent, they train. Well, in Canada, you could be 90 and be active and be in sport. You link with the right people. I remember, I think it was 2002, I was still keen on, encouraged by, God bless his soul, deceased, Fat George.
Yeah, the that's the
Yeah,
yeah,
the
I
short
know who you're speaking about, the shot put and discus. Yeah, yeah,
when
his name will come up.
when people like Devon George and Trevor Modest and the like in the field events, I used to follow things. And I know they could have been at the age the best in the world. Just as how we have young Peters now in the javelin world champ and all the like. These guys were so fit. I mean, they were so involved and the like. Um, we had plans if 2002 and that hurricane didn't come, we were on the ground to basically set up a master's program. That would have been my baby in any case. So that I didn't. After that was when things went here and we never got back to it. When I did meet up with Nigel, and I flew that about 3, 4 years ago, and he was interested, he was already competing. I said, let's get, okay, forget Canada. Get registered as a Grenadian. You could do well. You could go there. We could get opportunity. The flag could fly. Touch base with the Grenada Athletic Association. He walked his way. And I would always give him advice and support and the like until I decided last year I would join them. Um, and we are really looking forward to this year's Masters. Well, now you know that I'm retired, and I would have been retired by then. So I would have been, no COVID, I would have been in Toronto since February. Maybe just thinking about coming back. Would have been back for Carnival. Um, because that was sort of aim to sort of get them organized and set up. Because I think he really works hard, he's ambitious, and it's a good way to go. The difference is sponsorship for masters event is hard to get. I'm one of those that believe that sponsorship should not go into events like these at the athlete level. If you want to compete, it's about you, you build yourself. Because money should be going to the programs for the development of youth. I won't take, no matter what it is, to go there looking to compete for money or prizes or getting sponsorship when there's so many programs that needs the money. That's one of the issues I have with our association or people who involve in sports, that um, we have never been really truly been able to get that real kind of money, because I've seen so many of our talented athletes go down the drain. And the better athletes, 90% come out from the lower class, um, the people who cannot afford to maintain. The lucky ones who have family in states or otherwise will make it to a certain level. But by the time you get out there, man, your future is your future not in track or not in football unless you have that extra special talent. So,
Yeah, Gotti, about representing Grenada. It appears that back then in the 70s and the 80s, and probably until recently, representing Grenada was such a joy, such a pride, and was a proud moment for anyone who's doing that. I'm talking about back then, and speaking to folks like Michelle and even around folks, Paul Roberts and others, you get that feeling that it was such an honor to be selected to represent your country. These days, it's almost probably certain for some, and then there are those even before they make the national team. It's all about the money and all that goes with it. Well, you know what I'm saying.
no, no,
Some,
no.
something we have discussed before. But
Yeah,
tell me, Goti, and as one who represented Grenada, um, as an athlete and also as an administrator, what it was like to represent your country.
um, boy, a hard thing, boy. If I tell you, I mean, I'm telling you from the heart, you had to work hard because you wanted to represent your country. It's not like walking in and walking out now if certain officials and certain people like you or certain people you have links because that with all due, that is what it looks like. As I say, I can talk about most of what I will say because I could back it up with something Ray Roberts might have written about me in some paper at that given time because we looked for shortcomings and and journalism is something that I had a little problem with. I still today have it. Is that you could send to somebody who said a report on sports um, and get any sports news that the people want to give you. There have been so much controversy. As I said, sometimes I just forget about what people write about me. I like it because who know me differently. And in those days of organizing, okay, I was president of the Grenada Athletic Association. I think immediately after it would have been 85 or something like that. And that was by force.
You say
Canadian,
after Key Joseph?
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And well, during the revolution and whatever it is, Raymond Lane had traveled there. I think our executive at the time would have been Keith as president, Raymond as first vice president. And after 83, you know who migrated, who left, who whatever it is. I must indeed say that the confidence that people like Dr. Pitt, deceased Dr. D.P. Pitt, deceased Mr. Cloudon, deceased Gordon Ward, he's alive now, Reverend Roberts, and the like. These people just put all on me and come. Charles George, the effect was involved. And the challenges at that point in time, I was working and I was already in a supervisory, I think a manager position in one of the insurance companies. I still was doing study in Trinidad at the Academy of Insurance. And one of the things I remember, principal of the academy who sort of adopted me as his son says, look, George, when you become a manager or you become the leader, it's not about you. It is whereby people is going to like you. If you move too fast ahead of them, you will have problems. But that is the way we black people, that's the way it works. And I'm talking now about 85, 86, and that period of time. So in fact, that was basically when I was learning to be somebody in charge. I was operating as coach, manager, athlete, all at the same time. And I had to decide, look, if it's this where you are, this is what you must do. And my first period as president of the Athletic Association was a very good one. That was a period when we had things like the OECS games and the like. And we had good success. We had a lot of athletes and new athletes coming in. And then the 1990 elections, I think it was, when I was again president, that was my first challenge to that, where I really had to compete of being voted into office. If I have it right, I was the president elect. Bobby Benjamin, who had returned to Grenada at the time, was the second vice president.
There it is. Gordon Ward was the well, Bobby was the first vice president, Gordon Ward the second vice president. Then you had Vida as the secretary. The assistant was Louisa Chase. And then you had Tira Grant. And then you had Alistair or Alvin Clouden, I think. And well, you had, I think it was the trustees. But then you had a cycling representative.
Yeah, at that point in time, well, Hayden and I was good buddies way back from childhood and the like. And Hayden with Keith Rennick and so, they basically were trying to revive cyclists. And it was more or less about road racing because the facilities at the stadium and the like, we had gone past at grass riding, but they used to have um, coming out of the triathlon organized by the slingers and the like, and then going further on, we had good cyclists. Cycling became an interesting sport and activity at that point in time. And Hayden came in to the association as a representative because we were still the Grenada Amateur Athletic and Cycling Association. Before cycling went on the own, now we became the Grenada Amateur Athletic Association. As time, and it was important to separate the two because development was coming in all areas. And I always say, because of the people involved and the position they have, that was when track and field took all the energies that people became wanting to be this, wanting to be that official. They didn't like you, so they would make sure that they vote you out or get you out. I sort of willingly sort of opted out at one of the elections because um, they might have said because I've lost as president. What I've lost is respect from my peers um, who later recognized, or must have recognized that it didn't matter to me. And then I was, after 2 years of Mr. Benjamin's leadership or whatever it is, there was this country tongue thing started to come back in. Something I worked on during the revolution in the 80s. I remember actually that was when I was associated with being a Grenville boy. I really liked working in St. Andrews. I actually had a little stint in SAS.
Yeah, I want you to get. I want us to get at that point in terms of what you're talking about because yes, and speaking to some athletes before, including Eugene Licorice and others, they mentioned your involvement even at the time, even though you were involved with PDC, you still found time to be in Grenville almost every weekend and sometimes during the week on afternoons to help and some of the athletes in St. Andrews. But you were speaking on the point of your as an administrator, and you considered yourself very controversial at times. I wonder why you considered yourself controversial, or is it a label that was put on you as being controversial?
Um, I, I might have used the word controversial, maybe related to one instance, but I was always able to humble myself and work with anybody until I thought that, well, that person, their agenda and mine didn't fit. Um, I have, I, I remember there were people in my early years that we worked well with. Other people came in and I sort of lost that influence. And I mean, my mouth was free. People talk behind my back, they never talk in my face. And in small country and for small communities, especially when people like you, sometimes they pressure you. Why do you humble yourself? But it isn't in sport. Every sport, there were no worse. I didn't have a worse experience. At the period of time, the 10 years I spent as a representative on the GFA for St. Paul, man, nothing I could have had before that could be more outspoken, controversial than that. But in athletics, in my day, for example, I gave them when the next election came, I was out. I don't know. I must have been in Trinidad because I remember my work is I work all the day. I never worked in sport before. So I gave them the option, okay, if I do not get more than 2 or 3 votes as the president, because I know what the election could have turned out. Maybe I could have won with the support of the outer country. Nothing support, very little support from the St. George's area, maybe St. George's and Davis area. So I know. So I gave the people who were pushing me, and they were from the outer parish. I gave them an ultimatum. It's either I win because if you don't have authority, and this is where I was trained, I was on. This is why I was in a senior position, employed in a private company. I was always lucky to have my freedom to put sports. As I said, in the evening, I would just leave work 3 o'clock, head up, reach in Grenville, because Joan Toad might have been up there at the pickup. We do a little coaching she with on netball and the like, train. On weekend, it was a fun going out there because I know everybody in Grenville by then. So what happened is in that election, I won, but I won by 1 vote. And I said, the next 2 days I resigned. My dear friend Ray Roberts had me all sorts of people is who didn't cussing me and calling me because they didn't know me as what I was portrayed to be. That being, it never made me any difference. When the same sort of attitude to get rid of the then, I went back as a vice president to the now president, Charles George. Because I know Charlie, we worked, especially we were, um, he was integral in having the private sector games come back. I mean, really and truly, I could work under any or everybody. Again, I go in and it just wasn't me. I had more important things to do with regards to the development of my community. And so I opted out. So when we're talking controversy, it changed my mood and changed the way people looked at me. But it never changed me from what I could do, what I want to do. And I'm still today involved and recognized by that that body, the Secondary School Games Association, because they know my motto.
That's the principals, right?
The
Yeah,
principal.
yeah,
I mean, they know my motto that in the call was in the school, in the stadium away, school away from school, because that's the way we were brought up.
yeah.
So
And I believe that Mr. Victor Ashby and brother Dominic Jeremiah had that sort of trust in you, in that they kept you for all these years in terms of assisting and running the intercall championships.
well, as I say, that is the way I was privileged in the sense of having the time and having good employers, because that in itself is a factor. I remember my dear friend Jenny Woodruff when I went to work at the Bristols, and I mean, we had the means, we didn't have anything, but we had to be up there with the best and do the things. This is John Diabo alive, all the whole thing. We got it done. People, resources came because we weren't getting it in sponsorship. Nobody giving you the money. But if you go to them for X, Y, and Z specific, including the use of their facilities, all the thing machine in those days we used, those typewriters and the whatnot, and you had to roll the programs, all the nights in GBSS and high school and that, where you use that, they had these committed. Another thing, those officials, there was another thing too that was very, very important in what sport in general was. That of the discipline of the respect elderly folks had on the younger ones like me, I suppose who was there, Mr. St. John and so before Ram, Plug and so before those things, is that the discipline installed in us and how to get things done. I mean, we could have moved mountains without the kind of a quarter the finance of what is available now. You know, a tenth of it, let me not even say a quarter, because people respected your efforts. Everything today is that if you don't give an athlete, and I don't blame, mind you, I don't blame the athletes. I don't know where the blame is to go, but it's the world throughout, I suppose. It's either you pay or you're in.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you made that, because Clev Deputy is saying that in agreement with channeling funds to club program or programs for the development of sports in Grenada, but it cannot be administered with a susu mentality. The need for a course in Management 101, this search, must be an imperative. Accountability must be based on competence and not friendship, even at the club level. And I think in well, in what you're saying there in terms of the whole development, part of it has to do also with the whole management, and accountability and the whole level of transparency, and not too much on friendship. Okay. um
Michael, I just know that just let me make this point.
mhm.
Michelle was on your program, and it's one of the few. I say I was not in until you said me this thing about Michelle, and then was. And I actually made a comment to call a spade a spade. Um, and that is because of the when Michelle came back, Michelle wanted to be involved. She volunteered, her uncle developed it, and so. But I could not, after having all my, I really, and she didn't understand me. Michelle, I can't pull you in this kind of thing that's going on here. Because again, I know who Michelle is and what she doesn't. Her standards, with all due respect, who think otherwise, her standards is way above. So even in 2007, with the comment, even before we were thinking about the World Cup, or maybe they were thinking, I was encouraged by Michelle and Hazel and so because they were looking for numbers for a very expensive course. And it was an opportunity whereby the University of the West Indies, through the George Washington University, was doing a program that they extended to, I think, three islands, Barbados, Grenada, and was held in Trinidad. So we did the instructors, and so we'll come to Grenada, do our classes, we would do whatever it is, convert with them online and the like. And in 2007, we graduated. And that was about management. And that helped me. That I think it's about worrying about sports then. Because even at my management and my job and what I wanted to do in the future, that was a program. In actual fact, Michelle and Hazel Bizinski, after 2007, these ladies, because of their qualification and because of that thing, they went with Rushmans from Grenada. They took Rushman, took them to South Africa because of their responsibility and the accountability with regards to things like accreditation and the like. And you see, this is why I always say the best of our people, all my friends who would have been doctor this and whatever it is saying, top athletes, they don't feel you come back to Grenada and the bosses or the people in it, they feel challenged. And for what? Misconception that they're getting money or they have thing or what they have is maybe a trip. I don't think so. I think it's a problem of letting go. And that is where a lot of us have problems. Plain talk, bad manners.
and and are you
That,
saying and are you saying because of this plain talk, bad manners, you being labeled as controversial?
why it is I use the word you control? But I was done that.
Yeah, but I wonder why you describe yourself as being controversial.
You remember we were talking, and I give you, I really misunderstood. I give you a glimpse of my, this is where I am here doing my thing. This is
Well,
my
yeah, we
part
call
of
it,
my comfort.
yeah, we call it a mini sports museum, and
That's
it's
what,
not.
that's what you call it.
Yeah, because it's something we'll have to show our viewers shortly. We'll have to give them a glimpse of it. I do have a little thing here. We should give them a glimpse. But getting back to that whole area of administration as well, and even to some level coaching, because I want us now to shift to the point I was making about your dedication to assisting those even from the outer parishes, because you at those in those days there was this tongue country, discourse, and you basically bridge that gap in terms of um, taking yourself to the outer parishes, especially particularly in St. Andrew, I should say, and that's why a lot of the athletes do have that level of respect for you, especially those from SAS, St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School. And it was something you were doing almost week in, week out. Um,
Bascom, yes. Um, I have such good. I carry a thing on the back of my car that speaks about the thing of the revolution. I was not with that on the back of my car. It is so funny the way people read it and the way they look at the revolution and the like. But I choose to do that now because people seem to forget that during that period, education in Grenada, I was out, I mean, we are the graduate. Education during that period made me remember what my grandparents, what my mother struggled to be who she was, learn to read, being up in the church. I mean, my mother was, sometimes I always wondered, she had to be who, a blessing in someone because when I heard my great grandmother's stories and the like, and how they were brought up, and the revolution changed the education system in Grenada. I remember we had this thing, the CEP, whereby young people like me in the same community center that we eventually built ourselves and doing all in St. Paul, and that's where the community come in, were teaching people three times our age who were willingly coming in to learn to get the basic skills to read and write. There were other levels and people. When I went and
yeah, that's CPE, Center for Popular Education, right?
that they changed
Yeah.
when they created it, they changed it to CEP or the, I mean, that upset because it's a mind thing. We was done the communists like what's going on. When you see what's going on in the world today, in all this we're going up, we know communism, socialism, and capitalism. It have more isms going on now with regards to playing with the mind. So let me just say, because that was our thinking. And going out in the country because we, for a short thing, when I came from Mexico, it was during the PRG, and they used the bed. There was this thing, we have to bridge that gap. We have to make sure that the people in town, Mr. Glean, how could I ever forget Mr. Glean in McDonald College, who I met and things like that. And that guy, I think he still works as involved in the development of sport in St. Patrick's. I know Mr. Glean. I mean, and when I tell him Mr. Glean, like how he called me, Mr. Robinson, you know, they're the guys who build. Not I might help build a community or a thing. People like Mr. Glean build a parish and a big parish too when it comes to track and field and sport, you know. So I know of this. So when it was easy for me to link with people like Peter Blair. I was playing football in St. Andrews too before I started to do that with my autumn days and the like. So there are people I know. I mean, I could give you some great athletes that come out, triple jumpers, high jumpers, javelin throwers, 400 meter. I mean, they had it. I have a list. I mean, if I was prepared for this and prepare a list of who my interaction was or who it is, man, it's something to be proud of. Money can't buy that. So when that was what it was in the day, there were other persons in St. George's. There were other people assigned to St. John's, but fortunate for deceased John Pivot and I, we went into the parish that really had the resources. I always say St. David's was the other places that had the talent that didn't get opportunity, especially when I played what we call bush football or parish football in St. David's. And you saw, so there was no surprise to me when the St. David's Catholic School put a program in with Denise, supported by the principals and whoever they were. It was easy to modify up with the high school and the other schools that had that. And up to today, I remember the javelin throwers and the like, all coming out of St. David's. And and in itself, cricketers, these are the parishes where the talent was. So we were lucky. I was lucky to be where you're going to the gold mine. All you had to do was mine the gold.
Yeah, that's interesting for you from you there, Goatee. But let's see if we can get some of those because I have quite a few, and I want us to look at what you actually have there, because it appears that throughout our program, well, and from previous programs, the whole issue of documenting and archiving our history came up. And then in speaking to you, I realized that over the years, you spent quite a deal in archiving and documenting things on your own. And in fact, we're seeing right behind you there, if I can get a bigger picture there, of all those photos, and some of them actually from the 70s, I believe, because it looks as some of them are actually black and white. And
Yeah.
then there are those with just when when it just became color, moving from black and white into color. But it's interesting that you found some time to actually put together your own archive. Let's just check. Um, okay, so that's what I think Goatee actually muted himself. So let's wait until he comes on. But that is part of his archive that we actually see in there. And on the wall is photos of way back when, from PBC days, representing Grenada, club level, even during the revolution, intercall, just name it, photos, um, archiving, documenting. I'm seeing Trevor Modest and Jacinta Bartholomew along with Goatee. That would have been back in probably Olympics and CAC in the 80s. It's just photos, photos, photos. His wall of fame, as we will say, and um, it's what I call a mini sports museum. And it's not something that Goatee did apparently just for the program. It appears that it's something that was actually there for quite a while. And in speaking to him, I noticed I had a video conference with him, and I noticed those things, and I said, "What's that?" And then he explained to me that these are actually photos over the years, even with St. Paul's Sports Club. Grenada back then, in whether it was OECS Championship, Whitsuntide Games, organizing committee of the OECS Texaco Games, just name it. And I thought it was important that we look at those things. These are actually pins from every single Olympic nation over the years. Some of them would have changed, but this is important. Pins. Of course, this 1967 PBC Intercall team. And some of the photos are actually preserved. They are actually framed. 1972, intercall school football. Goatee, I think a lot of folks will be jealous about that wall of fame in terms of how you have been able to, over the years, get these photos and keep those photos. They even survived Hurricanes Ivan and Emily and whatever else we had. I mean, luckily you're based in St. Paul's, which is not flood prone, but you're able to keep those things and preserve them for all these years.
Uh, um, in actual fact, I moved into this house when I a lot of the photos and things that people share with me, I just they scan it and they give me a copy and I give them things. For example, I sure I still have some things belonging to Mason Francis, although I hear about some all those intercall programs from way back when that could have identified with me when I actually practically started to officiate. And there's a lot of stuff. But my mom always hung a lot of photos on her wall. She couldn't afford the thing, and those that wallpapers and the like. So I grew up. This is open my little study. My living room is where my family is. I walk in. My wife is in Toronto. I live alone. My son, fortunately, is downstairs. I have grandchild now and all that like. And it is just a matter of you see, you ask, and you find out. If I would really need a museum to really put up nearly everything. Yeah. Um, I I have asked people. Um, I am sorry that Flyers, who was very very helpful with me in a lot of the things that he is, I looked out for his at one point in time a very good supporter when I had authority in a home to at least give him some part of sponsor because this tackle magazine was important. Speaking of which, that I think I still have a copy of what your newspaper you and Alvin had sometime. What year that was? Griot or something so?
Oh, in the early days. Oh, there was the Great
When,
Magazine. The
when you're
Great
like,
Magazine.
I
Yeah.
think I will even come across two of that sometime that I have somewhere thing with information and like. So I was just trying to find stuff that in my old age or sometime that I could share. Anything I have, because that's how I get to people. Don't even people never even people think that I work in sports all the days of my life. I never work in sports yet, except during the revolution when you went over there and well, you didn't get paid.
Yeah, but the point of the archiving, because when whether it was Michel or Patrick Simmons or Paul Roberts or others, the point reiterated that the documenting and archiving of our sporting history very important, and whether in the form of pictures, whether in the form of videos, whether in the form of articles, very important for
No article.
yeah for generations to come to understand and appreciate what it was like then. And as Cleve say, he must give you kudos for your dedication and commitment, particularly with the intercall sporting event throughout the years. We must never allow expediency to overrule experience. And he concluded by saying very impressive pics, referring to the photographs. And it's something we have been discussing in terms of having somewhere that folks can, research our sporting history. Some time ago, about 3 weeks ago, someone sent me a message. They actually, and I think they at St. George's University, and they were doing a paper. Well, part of their studies had to do with Grenada sporting history, and they were trying to find out where they can start or where they can get information to do that research. Unfortunately, we do not have a library per se, a physical library, think existing physical library. So a lot of it will have to be done basically virtually online, or to some extent trying to seek persons who they can speak to in terms of getting that information. But I'm saying that what you have done there is basically a start, and I hope it's something that can be embraced even through the Grenada Olympic Committee in terms of a sporting museum. I know they do have the space for something like that, but certainly what you have there, and I'm certain it's not all that we have seen because you seem to be very selective to an extent, but you have quite an array of photos and articles. I've seen some of the things that you have scanned, programs from way back in 1980 something and to some extent 70 something, in the 70s, So the conversation continues, Goatie, on a sports museum, archiving and documenting our sporting history. You have started. What you hoping to see come out of that?
Um, the truth, I what I start in what I like and what is me. There was Hugh Dolan, and I think that was about when, like everything else, when things popular, when things going on. I know Hugh interest in anything he starts and how to develop it and it. I remember given he had access to a cricket thing in his business place in Bolio and the like. Yes, Ivan might have been what it is, would have destroyed. But when we have things, these things are not, I mean, for you and the people who did it, it costs money. I mean, it's because they might have been able to afford to do that. What if, let's look at other, this thing is a business. You look at TV and all sort of things. I don't have what it takes. I don't have the knowledge or whatever it is to act. I do what this because I like. What since the since way back when I could remember everybody talking about archiving and doing what, and even when you're calling people to ask them to share, you have anything for that? I want to do something. PBC X Y Z. Anything I had of PBC or I have magazines. When Mr. I just bring them and let Mr. Jeremiah sort it out for the school. When you all get this, you give my back. No, no, serious. But that is me. So what I think, yeah, on a serious note, there has to be, and it has to be a foundation formed. If you can get the person, it has to be somebody with the expertise at doing that writing or whatever it is, or compile. This is not. I put up a few pictures because I like that as me. What you would need if you put enough them, you need to get authentic stuff and make sure authentic pictures are easy to get. The problem is the stories with it. I just talking off of my head. A lot of people might disagree with me. That ain't true. But I have anything you discuss with me, I sure I send you something that you could authenticate it. Uh, um, and I have gone through, for example, the issue of me not being, and I say, if I talk about it, I don't think it has nothing to do with that. I had, when I went to my first Olympics in 1984, I was actually part of John Yabo's team, right? I went in 1992 as a default because somebody had to go the year before. Imagine that the president of the International Athletic Federation, because of the links of John had with the West African countries and things, actually came and visited Grenada,
That
ensured,
one summer ranch at a time?
yeah,
Mhm.
ensured that Grenada is we had serious financial difficulties. How John made his magic, that's not important to me. But he came and Grenada was insured to. When the time to come, we couldn't find the money. Barcelona was way out where. Samarans and John do the magic. I happened to be the. I went out there, get the stuff. Grenada team was able to go. So be it. I just after that, I know me want to go to the Olympic. I know I want to drink. I support. I do whatever it is. Until um we it's not about they had the success. We had the success of a lot of athletes, and we have hundreds of them. That if we had put it together, I got very hurt in 2009, and I think that way it was boiling in me, and I maybe acted a little bit, if you want to use the word aggressive, against some people that operate the Olympic. When in I flew to St. Lucia on the last day of the event, I mean, I really reconscript after intercall and doing all of it to get to St. Lucia because I would have lose even at
That
a house,
that
a
was
house
that was Carifta Games, right?
Caribbean game 2009 in
Yeah.
St. Lucia because I would have lost anything. I was going to bet my last dollar that two things that Rondell was going to beat Kirani on that day in the finals and that Grenada would have won gold in the 4x4. I neither of them I was but it was the greatest, one of the greatest character event. Not because Grenada won. Grenada flag was high. But that Jamaican Usain Bolt record that was broken by both our athletes in an almost dead finish. I actually analyzed the race and I showed them where 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 how Kirani beat because Kirani that was the only time I followed it from Intercal up to St. Lucia that there was something about him. He was nursing a kind of injury. But that guy is not a loser. After that, I'm convinced up from that day, he is a winner and he will win at the highest level. After that event, both of them break up that gold record. And we were not even able to form a good 4x4 team when we had good fellas. I mean, we had some good athletes involved in that on that team. I was there. I heard the officials talking, and it was just a matter of some selfish arguments between the officials or whoever was in charge of them that we didn't need a place in the relay. We had after that 2012 coming up. Okay, I want to go. I think a lot of people interested. Grenada, England. This selfish people. I took a decision that I would to get back involved with one proper way to do it. Try to be a member of the Grenada Olympic Committee. Something I say never, you know. So I went about the right way with regards, and then I was given some bull crap thing about not even they said I respond, but I didn't respond. But I know if that six people qualify as an individual member, which I think they changed the constitution, that qualified based on my involvement to be an ordinary member of the Grenada Olympic Association. I was one of them. And the documents are there. One of these days, it was my fault that they didn't come to a conclusion because I had more important things to do. But it will come to conclude that no constitution, no thing from and that was my so I has been the last interview I do was with George Grant on that, and I forced myself to do this one with you.
Okay, but so are you saying there's litigation on that matter regarding?
It's only unfortunate the last time it was supposed to come up. I one was away and I really wasn't interested to leave what doing to deal with that. But it's there. And again, you see, this is a matter that went to court in the first place. The first response I could remember is that judge, a white man, saying, oh, why is this coming in? There's no issue here, but send it to mediation. It was mediated by somebody that know more about operations of Olympics and sport and in yeah. Couldn't come to a conclusion. So I just say, let's go back to court.
Okay, well, seeing as there is pending litigation, we
I
won't
ain't
want
heard
to.
of that one.
Yeah, we won't want to.
I ain't going to, I'm not out of line. The most they could do is that, wait, you see, in today's world, anything in the court aware of it is public knowledge. What it is, if I think that I could say to you, what I say to you, could prejudice anything, the matter. I ain't willing to go about it. I just tell you about when it comes to why I am who I am, and I don't need to.
Yeah. I understand that, but I'm just saying. So there is. But in terms of clarity to the viewers, what you're saying is that there is a pending litigation on an issue relating to your
wanting and applying, I think it's 2013 or something, to be a member, an ordinary member of the Grenada Olympic Committee. Okay. That is what I wanted. I ain't all the talk about, I want to get rid of this one, I want to do what I did. That was no issue. And I was not out of place. I had a right, like any citizen, that according to the Constitution, that I still believe that I ain't sure I want to be no, but I have a right to have been
Okay.
allowed that privilege.
So you okay? Is it challenging it? Let's we'll as you say, we'll
Anyway,
come we'll come back to that. But
we're coming back to that. Let's go on to the other.
let's go over to 2000. You make that point there because I always like to revisit that 2009. That was St. Lucia Carifta Games. We'll come back to it in a moment. Yeah, that was
Yeah, and I still, you don't go back and you don't. I suppose if Kirani and Randall and someone would say, if Kirani was in lane 7 and Randall was in lane 5, Randall can lose a race. And I will tell you why. I run a lot of 400s and a lot of things already. Donald Pierre will tell you this too. Kirani, a winner, run, and that's why that race was so fast now, because this kid, Randall, was in tip top shape and form. I actually said, I had placing them in lane 4 and 5, or 5 and 6, because I thought that's where they might have been close to one another. And the closing. So the fact that even Randall comes wrong at a comfortable place and run back for about 30 meters and check the time in between their differences, he would have been in ever, and nobody is telling me, because I know when I run, I used to be, I know who in what lane and who I have to. At that point in 11, by 1983, 82, sorry, you train yourself. I train myself and give the thing at the time. I just didn't want to run in Grenada for people to know I could run it at that old age. I happened to be in a relay team, and if that baton didn't fall, we would have, it was a team, we had Alexander start as Zush. He's in Toronto now. And as far as we are concerned, the person that had to give us the best lead was Conrad. So we mixed up our team in a kind of way that as long as I could get it, bring it to Conrad. We're supposed to have been way up front already. And Conrad, even though he bring it 5 meters behind to Pierre, but Conrad was the best 800 meter in the region at the time, because obviously he could run maybe a better photo than us. But Pierre, and unfortunately that battle fall. Again, training and knowing when you know about it, I let things pass and I pick it up and I run. I know how good I was at the point in time. And we had to run. We were just a few seconds outside of the Grenada national record that was there with PBC team all these years. Despite of all we lost we lost some good seconds by me waiting to pick up that baton, because if I didn't pick it up in the right place, our team would have been disqualified. And the experience of Zush that ran so well, maybe we didn't expect him, between me and he, to be that good and that fast. But we had to win. As long as Donald Pierre and then we had to win. So, and I'm saying, so we have all, that's why again, when I see the quality we had to go into 2012 Olympics or even the World Championship, we should have at least been the finals of any relay in the world at that time.
But Goatie, a
A
former
former
quarter miler, administrator, and also involved in coach. And you keep lamenting we should have. What you think was the reason
I agree
behind
with
what you think are the reasonings behind why Grenada, except for probably participating or trying to, well, I recall at the pen relays, I think it was 2012, 2011, 2012, pen relays, Grenada had a relay team there. They finished third, I think, outside, yeah, third USA, Bahamas, and then Grenada with Kirani and Rondell. Joel Redhead was there, and I think the guy from St. Kerry, oh, Harry, yeah, Harry was also on the team. Um, but over the years, with the likes of Kirani James, Rondell Bartholomew, even Braylon Taplin to an extent, when he came on in,
it. Even before Brillam.
well, yeah, I'm saying even up to when Braylon came onto the team and he first competed, represented Grenada. What do you think, as a former administrator yourself and one who has been involved in track and field and even at intercall and going throughout the region at character games on your own, looking on, what do you think could be the rationale why Grenada could not have had a relay team at least at some major international meet?
Um, my personal view.
And probably intelligence as well.
Yes, you're squeezing my head, my brain. You just flatten my brain there a little. Anyway, I think it is basically we have quality, we have the talent, we don't have the willpower by whether it's the and I had to put it government, the Ministry of Sports and the Ministry of the Grenada Olympic Association and the Athletic Association. If you put it because they're the only ones that have any level of responsibility. And at that point in time, you're talking about two of our senior administrators in whatever category in the Ministry of Sport. Um, we had in one of the universities, Posh, um, Francique, and so what levels. But you have to understand, you live in America. I don't, I hear about, I made a mistake a long time ago, whereby uh, uh, I remember Evelyn Maitland getting a scholarship, one of our first athletic scholarship going to the United States and compete doing well. But eventually he had to get a career. There was no way he would have been professional, so he ended up in a career to do something. And then I think it was after 90 or sometime I take two people, children, Leon Decoto and Ashton McSween, work with their parents and other people. And there were other people, these Trinidadian interested in getting them and giving them a scholarship, which I proposed. And then when I understood what these scholarships are, where they went in those days, how these kids suffered. I mean, I used to, it costed all sort of stuff. So I didn't expect them to, I didn't ever expect Leon to return to Grenada. I was only hoping and praying that these guys could have developed themselves and be like most of our other athletes who have left here, who have had government support and all the like to at least give back something. Um, it has to be an administrative problem in the sense that if we have top athletes like starting with Aline, even though Kirani in the racket, I was very sorry for Rondell. I actually saw him when they were trying to qualify for some meet, and he had an injury that if he was in the right school like Kirani or somebody like that, this is my personal belief, they would have healed that injury. I don't know why it had to reach this stage. People that have much worse injury, as long as you're in the States or Canada, easy injury to resolve within 6 months so you could compete the next year. That didn't happen, and so he went through the line. Then the Taplin came, whereby they tried. So it is deep down that we don't have the structure. I want to use a simple structure, whereby there are people who could say, in your plan, that this is it. It don't have to come from Grenada. We could have, just as how we, as I always say, we take Kirani and we give him to some American coach and something, or everybody blind running him out. But that was the best thing for the kid. He actually won a gold medal. Whether it was a rejected American Olympic coach or otherwise, I am saying, talking from words I hear people say, right? And that is tough. I don't think the way I speak, nobody could sue me for it. So this is the way I personally see it. It has to be that block because the athletes are there. We never really had, and a long time, a lot of kids go through the crack. Two of the best female athletes that I have seen. I will not take down Nisha Bernard. I will not take down Regis. Um, they have exploited, they have done great at CAC level. We had Beryl and Trevor doing great at CAC level learning. They were in opportunities, they went to school whereby they had X, Y, Z amount of competition, which is so important. You know, what I'm talking now about two of the best athletes. Jacinta did well. I saw on forum in UC, the college where she went to learn. What one of another best athletes, I would like one day somebody give me a good explanation. What happened to this little 15-year-old girl that was running the same time and could have even beat the under 17 one at the semi, the name Kishara George. That kid had talent. I don't. Something had to be wrong. That, in my humble opinion, that she was not in some way ended as one of our greats. Because at that point in time is when our athletes were getting good opportunity with reasonable scholarships. You know, whatever the reason, but
Yeah,
it's not.
but in all fairness, I know, yeah, you spoke about that's Kishara George, and then you had Hazel Regis and others, and Nisha Bernard Thomas, etc., etc. But if you can recall, there were many others, but the Hazeland and the Nisha, and to an extent probably Kishara, who didn't go on that much. There are those who probably would have fell through the cracks. The Hazeland and others, stayed. They represented Grenada. Some of them went on to a brief professionals, the brief professional circuit, as the case was Arlene Francique. So there were a few of those who, stuck around, and but the opportunity for them outside of an individual medal, because the argument has always been made for the men, for example, and when you come to the female too. Kirani was always a medal prospect when you looked at him. But then there were others who, even though they were not, and they were competitive, there was the tune that they could have teamed up. And it's something I spoke to Kirani about, I recall, in 2014 at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, where he acknowledged that and said to me, not in an interview, but just in a discussion, if there is any way he can assist in any of those athletes getting to the podium, and it's something that is done through the American system, for example, through the relay, that, and a team effort, as in the case of the relay, is something that he is willing to do. And whenever he's asked, once it is asked within the period of time that he can fit into his schedule, he will be on it. But I think there's always the argument that
Question to you.
wait, there was always the argument that the request for these athletes to participate in a relay team is always being made after the fact, after they would have put in their schedule, after they would have made certain commitments in terms of meets, etc. And yes, you will say country first, but they have commitments with their sponsors, their international sponsors. They have those sort of commitments, and it's not something where they are waiting. And this week they'll say, okay, we're going to this meet next week, or we go. They have a schedule, and sometimes the schedule is drawn up way in advance.
I hope it doesn't get too dark because the sun where I am, I live in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
city.
but that's the point I'm making regarding the men. The women could be a bit different. Goatee, there could be a different argument with the women because yes, we may not have had the depth in terms of the women, but to the credit of probably the Grenada Olympic Committee to an extent, I know there have been a focus in terms of getting the women to qualify. They would have gone to St. Kitts, they have gone to Trinidad in terms of competition, putting them together. Nisha, Kanika, Trish, a few of those girls would have gone together in couple of those meets. Yes, they may not have made the cut, but I think Grenada had good prospects, especially in the men, in terms of at least winning a medal. And you'll hear commentators saying year after year, especially at the level of the world relays, for example, the commentators will make the point where it is there isn't a Grenada team when there's so many talents out there in terms of the quarter milers. We had at one point in time, we had the top, well, I shouldn't say the top three, but at least three-quarter milers who were ranked within the top 10 in the world.
Easy. And
Three-quarter milers
I
ranked in the top 10 in the world. And you have teams who winning medals without one athlete ranked in the top 10. Something went wrong. Talk to us.
character gave 2009. Anyway, no, let me tell you this. I made the comment and I used the reference because are we looking at, and you made a point, you made 2 points that interest me. Your discussions with Kirani, your discussion, you think about the girls and what they're saying. If I, in my humble state, or the way that I think, you know that qualifying times is 6 months, 10 months before, or the year before, but that has changed a lot, that we want to send a team X, Y, and Z. It's like you plan. It's not like in our day whereby we going to Olympics and the Olympic Committee, because they have to develop this equality and everything, they're giving you two in this sport, two in that sport. You could come with and go with a team as big as 10, 15, also with a coach, as long as you could afford it, because that was in the 60s and 70s development of the sport. We reached to the stage whereby to be in a 400, you could have won in 1984. You could have been in a finals if you're running for the 6 months something in a 400 meters, right? You could have made a final. Maybe you're good luck, you might even win. I used to have a good friend, Butland Cameron, that suffered badly in the 84 Olympics. He was way above the rest. But so you speak to people and you understand what it is the Jamaican have a responsibility as a Jamaican athlete to want to be part of a team. But their wanting to be part of the team was not only their performance decision, it was a management structure that they have without that has no hypocrisy in it. You're either qualified to be one of them or you're not. I think a lot of our failures when it comes to putting it together is that the administrators and the people responsible for it, you could be qualified to do a lot of things, You might be certified to do a lot of things, But you just mightn't be qualified. Depends on the level of what it is that is demanded of you in a given time. As my old people used to say, the teacher could teach the student to be good. The students could teach the teacher to be better. And if people like Kirani and so say they're willing, and for the length of time or whatever it is, these people must be heard. These are the people who know it and feel it. So why are they not heard? Who to blame or what to blame? I don't. I have not been involved. I could only talk, and I'm willing to do anything. Get on a plane tomorrow because that's all I like to do now. The last OECS championship, one island in the Caribbean I didn't go to was BBI. But I have a lot of friends. I reached there and they welcome me and all kind of thing because I never went to the BBI in a sport meeting. I did that, and that was the last one I think I had to do island wide.
Okay.
That's
Um,
me.
yeah. Goatie, well, with the we just have about 20 minutes remaining in the program, but I wanted you briefly to talk about the your involvement in the community, as you mentioned, is not just through sports, but also through culture as well, and especially with I think it's Comancheros. You have been involved with Comancheros for many years, and for someone who probably living in St. Paul's, Comancheros is part of the community, as you will say. If you're living in River Road, you at least have to know something about football, you know. Um, how have you been involved, how you got involved in PAN in particular? Because, a lot of it, as we realize, and I've been speaking to some of the sportsmen and sportswomen, there's somehow this linkage between sports and culture. Whether it was Michel, whether it was Ray, with sports and youth organization, youth groups, whoever it is we have been speaking to, there is somewhere they have been linking sports and culture. Even Bonnie Wilson, the boxer, is also involved in drama, the theater arts. How you have been able to get involved in PAN in the community?
You're born into involved. You want to play band? Um, to be honest, the community in itself, Comancheros is a staple name. Okay. When I was still just leaving school, I had one ambition to play band. Sports was not anything there because in those days, Comancheros was I was playing pan and in school. As a man, I was a good pan player. When in 1972, Comancheros made our first record, we went to Barbados. Um, I just finished school, so I was allowed to go be part of the record making. We did fighting well. We did well with that. Comancheros tour for about 5 years on working with a German company on Russian ships or Italian ships doing West Africa, parts of Europe, Brazil. I mean, you can't count the amount of countries in those days. And playing pan was like we getting paid to have fun and to do that in those days. So I always wanted to do that, which I did 3 tours. The pan in itself, so I played pan all the life. Speaking of it, I left um, Barcelona before the team because I went ahead of them because I wanted to come back to Grenada to play pan. That is how pan was I think, and the community. Then we had the St. Paul Sports Club. That was in the old community center yard that you learn to play football, you learn to play. And everybody played. We had competitions with guys from town where I always came and play football on rough old fields in Laborie and all that. So it always had that flavor. One of the things that I appreciate as still a member and even a playing member of Comancheros is the amount of youth that has come through that pan system that that have moved on, that the band has helped to move from A to Z. So we reach back with the same young players. The Androgynes now the big arranger back in doing it. The St. Paul Sports and Cultural Organization build our own community center, come with it. Organize events. City of Lights, that was one of the greatest things in the country. Things to be proud of. But we now have the present um, youth or the present organization is only because of COVID. We did not have the St. Paul's Independence extravaganza that has been going for years, that keeps the community, get every child, every involved in some way of something to be proud of. I just happen to be one of the older ones around that's still active and respected, so I participate. But that is the kind of community spirits. A lot of communities have worked with us, joined with us, and has also developed. So, so it goes from strength to strength.
Yeah, it's good to see that the that marriage in terms of sports and culture, and especially with the, you said it's the St. Paul Sports and Culture Organization. Is that
Yeah,
the correct name?
that's what it is.
Yeah,
It's
and
Empower Sport Cultural and Development
and the
Organization.
development organization. Okay, and what's about the St. Paul's football team? Um,
Uh, We that in itself, we over the period of time, that will controversy come in and all kind of thing. I was on my word. The team, St. Paul's senior team, has they're more or less, we are at a two-tier now. I have not been directly involved much, but the two-tier I speak about, I know that there's over 40s where the guys participating, and then we have on the 15 and on the 17 teams, and on the 15 teams that are in training, supported by the Grenada Football Association. You know the Football Association. They're working. They have the money of basically what it is, and has been going on. So we are expecting, like in the near future, to have a St. Paul's team that will be back up at the highest level of playing in Grenada. And we have some of the young guys who have done the courses of the GFA courses and are now working with the teams. So the future there, hopefully, will be in. There's also a plan, and it's also planned. St. Paul's had one of the strongest um, cricket team. There's also in motion to teach the young men or get them involved in cricket. Secretary General, Secretary Janice, who has been a past member of the Grenada Netball Association, is also working towards us having a netball team actually playing in the competition. So that is as much. I am not directly. You see, another thing with our structure, we have people that are responsible for development and of certain areas, the sport of the culture. People like me are there to give advice, and we have a fairly strong management committee. Most of them are women, so you know these days is woman power. So we hopefully will be going from strength to strength. The Comancheros, the Orchestra have a very strong support group in, in the USA. We have good support in Canada and the like. Now, so
so the community as a whole has that sort of support.
yeah,
Okay, that's good to see, and great to hear as well. And hope that you know, just as our culture is brimming in in the village, that sports will once again be up and going. What's about playing fields in the community for the folks?
well, that's one of the burning issues I have with our organization. We have fairly good playing fields, a good home playing field. We have a netball court, basketball court. That is quite good. Even some of the villages playing field like library where we used to play on the rocks up and down, they're being developed. So one of the few basketball courts it have indoor is in library. I know when we talk St. Paul, we talk library,
Yeah,
Monterey,
yeah, yeah, and even as far down as Manjulu, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk the areas, that is a community when we have an activity. So as I say, and I'm confident that they are young, vibrant people who are actually stepping up to the plate, taking over from us.
Okay, good to know. Goti, there's a question I wanted to ask you about, and I see one of your student is bringing it up in terms of the Masters Athletic, and I think you touched sort of briefly on that regarding a Masters Athletic Championship in Grenada. Um, I know it's something you have been thinking about, something you have given thought. In fact, even in terms of resuscitating the private sector games, what you think about the Masters Athletic Championship for both men and women?
As I told Nigel, um, he is participating after participation at such a high level. It is there is thought and good thought have to be put into it. As you would remember, there's a lot of we've had Mickey and I organized our 40th Masters, which was geared up to be Masters, starting at least with football and the like. And you know what I told them? As soon as you do one good thing, and everybody it had to come in financial and all the like. Um, I think, and I told Nigel, we are hoping to be in Toronto this year in the Masters, sort of really get. Grenada is affiliated, but we need to, to get it right. How do I encourage? How do I get people? If you're out there, it is easy, but Masters event is an expensive thing. I straight out ain't going and begging nobody. If I eventually want to get a sponsorship, that's cool. If I have to find funds, is to help out some youth development program. So it calls for a different kind of study. Guys who have left school, guys who still looking fit, guys who appreciate, who wants to give themselves some form of posture because they still can run, we have it in the planning. I was hoping that it will come by 2020, that we would have been able to come out with a Grenada launch. Um, um, if for the Whitsuntide or so, I know I haven't gone to Toronto, gone to the Masters. I have spoken, and Nigel and I, we have met with some the Bajans, the Trinidadians, and the like, and they are willing to give support. But we have to Grenadians have to realize, first and foremost, and we have to work in realizing that Masters is as good as event as an under 15 event because it could bring someone. You see, you could get mentors. You could get those athletes that who know God, Goatie Robinson, but don't know who he had the time and then. I mean, that's the way people treat me when I go wrong in something because of maybe what I hear.
Well,
I could, I
well,
could, but I can't bring other people in unless it's well structured so that these young people could appreciate it.
right, yeah, because here,
What are you thinking?
even here in New York, I know I was surprised. Over the years, I've been going to some of the indoor and outdoor championships, and surprisingly, most, if not all, there is a masters component. And surprisingly, I do find from time to time many Grenadians participated. In fact, I get to know a couple of Grenadians who actually through those meets themselves, there was actually a Grenada relay team, a masters relay team, participating in one of the meets. So and it was actually guys that probably you didn't even know about back in Grenada,
Yeah,
competing. So I think it's a good point you're making there. But
it's in the making. It's in the making. It's in the making. I mean, I just, unless, as I say, that is one of the problems with us in Grenada. If we don't do it right or we don't structure it, especially in this day and age, whereby, plain talk bad manners again, the youth are not properly trained and molded. There's too many distractions. They have seen too many of our athletes fall through the crack. They a lot of promises. They go, they might compete with enthusiasm in the relay meets because they might have some pay to get now. You know, but get them to go and unless you belong to a club like St. David's or you're on a team for Mr. Glean. Well, I ain't too sure about who organizing or unless that's asking who organizing St. Andrews. I really can't answer those questions because I have sort of taken a backseat. Um, I will ensure that all in life that we continue with intercall. Oh, how unfortunate we were because we are all geared up, ready to float with the new Republic Bank in the call 2020, all the T's and dots were already crossed and ticked, and more or less, Ivan Kayman could hopefully, even though we can't get we'll find some way to ensure, because track and field and athletics in an interested athlete's life is important, and it's hard work, and it's an individual sport on a team. Guys could run around and play football, basketball, and reach a certain level. One or two might go through. But track and field is, unless you have a club that you're committed to want to develop yourself, right? Or like Dr. Sean Lambert and so, who have given. These are the people I know who are willing to come back and give and being involved and do all sorts of things. But how do they do it? These are people who have developed with structures. You have to respect that and respect them. So as I say, the talent is always there. It will always be there long after our time. It's how we mold it, and we can't give up. No many, we are at the age now, people no longer die in the 70s and 80s. They're talking of 35, 40, basic physical people. It's because of we not take a certain health problem. And not only that, it is people are frustrated.
Okay. You see yourself anywhere inside of that photo there?
We get our own, but let me see, I know your glasses, I see Sabri. Now, that front line, this is a tour. Somebody might tell me I didn't know about Canada. That's on the court. Coca-Cola, Johnny, Sabri, and that front line Pani. I think you've seen me.
Okay, but
Second man. No, I get hidden.
okay.
Because
Well,
I had to been playing a second pan or a tenor bass.
okay. Well, what the person is actually saying, and if I say what they said, then you might have an idea who it is. They said if Cheros had to choose another name, I'm sure it would have been the Robinson's Steel Orchestra.
Well, let's put it this way. The band formed in the yard, and every Robinson, just like every Noel, and most of the people, including Mello, Joan was one of the first woman players that actually played active in the band. This is Joan Bebot and the like. So yes, the Robinsons is right there in the yard, right? The history start in and around the Uncle Dennis and the like. So but it has spread, and I suppose when you're yard in yard, and we've always been involved, as I say, that's what we know.
Right, right. That's great to know. And yes, Toro is saying that you had the honor of being the oldest player, you're talking fella, to score in the Old Trafford over 40 football competition. And
I scored in every competition. When I leave school, I was that is something else we talk about. I played on a football team called Atoms with people like Paul Roberts and Major Jackson. And I was in the field when Melo lost his leg, and thing. A little boy from St. Paul's. I used to get real tuned about that. But if you could score goals and you could play, I had my time. But in those days, people like me can't get, even though I had a third division Grenada team, it had so much talent with Grenada football. I will always remember the last one that was it 93, the Shell Cup in Barbados. It had this hosting boy, Steve Mark, and them guys ban up with all kind of thing. Playing against Trinidad and Tobago. I think we get a 1-0. But in those days, I used to be traveling in Barbados and all. And even up to that team, and even the team to Cheney and so football, when I hear about the Popham Cup and the Jacksons and the whoever it was, these are people we wanted to be like. You understand? These days, nobody want to be like. No, I don't care about if somebody tell me about even St. David's people know me by heart, Everybody in St. David's know me because the way I played football in St. David's. Eh? If I go in Victoria and
Okay.
go up, everybody, I remember a young lady, she must be in her 40s, and they're arguing by the bay because I like my fishing on Saturday morning. And they saying, that's the man that used to fire the gun, telling her daughter that, her granddaughter. So, you know,
Yeah.
I had fun, boy, and still.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, Goatee. Well, Susan did say that all she said everything except the girls,
Yeah.
except the
My
girls.
sister Rosman played a good netball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was nice speaking to you,
What,
Goatee.
what do I do? I think there has to be, people just have to be honest. We just have to be honest.
Mhm.
We have to be, as Grenadians, try and, because all we do most of the time is exploit the talent. You're good, you're on board. You're middle class, unless you have a family, you
Mhm.
ain't stand a chance. Worst of all, if you're good, you could be the best. And where you come from, we have to get out of the mentality. In all
Okay.
the sports, I know what the guys play basketball, the footballers. Yeah, look, Grenada Football Association are real money they're doing. I was on that, represented St. Paul's 10 years in that thing when there was a lot of destabilizing and a lot of things going. I made a comment and I tell people, Chenny was the best of the lot. I'm not against Ram folks or anything, but there's too much politicking and wanting position. I mean, you can't take that into the Olympics. You'll be very out of place. But these organizations is glad to know they're stable. What I have problem is that people, and we could
Mhm.
use Grenada Football Association. I might be wrong. I'm giving them the kudos, but they must ensure the people they employ have a terms of reference that we as Grenadians must see that they're working. Don't tell me you have a women's football team training, and every year I go and see a Grenadian football team, half of them in on it, or they playing. Where are the successions? And then we go into a big one we're playing against, and we have to look to bring in all foreigners that maybe not even. Hey, that kind of attitude, I have a problem with. You think like GFA who have money. Get it is in, with all due respect to them, it might be happening at a village level, but one person can do it. And if you have a watchman to watch the watchman,
Mhm.
you're saying this thing, and that is where our administrative level is for. If I volunteer for certain things, them don't know my qualification. They know how certified I am. But
Mhm.
it's good. He had the time already. That's the attitude. I have no problem with it.
Well, let's hope that that changes, and
That's it has to.
yeah, and also I'm wishing you all the best in terms of your legal, issues.
Hey, that's behind the line. That is the one, the last thing I ever think. But the day it happened, it happened. And it
Yeah,
will. But
well, yeah,
I have, Vida is my friend. We talk, we chat, and wherever we're going, but that is their way of operation.
yeah,
But
but
that,
I
there's no,
don't, I don't think it's anything against Vida. I think it's you
it's a
dealing with
structured organization.
the principle of the organization. Yeah.
I plain out. I
Yeah.
don't have any problem with any of them.
Okay then. Well, great to know. And as Edwin Sam said, great session, Goatee, and uh, whoops, Adrian Spaceman Mitchell, future program, Ashton Henry and Siobhan Brown. Yes, we do have space for all these, but we have quite a number of folks lined up
But
for
you could have bring them. Oh yeah, the waste time with me, bro.
from the program. Well, as Clem says, find the right physicians to heal the fractures in the culture and sports. Notice all members are singing the same tune in different keys with default song systems. Definitely, Clem. I think we do have a lot of work to do in
I
terms of
agree there.
getting that. But Goti, I want to thank you for your insight, and I know it took quite a while for you to be on the program, but it's always good to have that conversation, that open conversation, and for folks who may be listening, yeah, we're trying to do a sort of mix and get from those folks who from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, what it was like. And we can probably chart a course, and I think,
I hope that, as I told you when you asked me, I hope that will be the outcome of all that has been, because we've tried. But if the local, y'all outside there in the diaspora, They're always willing to help. You go out, you could go help, you could get things. It's us here.
Yeah, but we don't, out in
And
the diaspora, we don't have the answers, you know.
no, no, I said that. If
What
you
we need, what we need, yeah, what we need is a consensus. What we need is a collaboration. And
I ain't say all, you know. I just say that the support we have from you
yeah,
all over.
right. Well, I understand. I understand. And the support we have been given, folks like Depredine and others, Margaret and a host of folks who have been making suggestions, and they have had the the experience in terms of going, attending, being exposed to those sort of international, sporting, meets and what have you and things
I
like
could
that.
afford it.
Well, some people do say that, but
No,
it's
I
just,
appreciate it. I mean, I just
yeah.
making
But I think sometimes, and you mentioned the word appreciate, and I think sometimes for those out, I think it's just the word appreciation. They're willing to assist, they're willing to support. They're not looking for anything, but as you said, is the appreciation sometimes. I know Hazel and Joel and a host of athletes I've spoken to, they have spoken at the program. Some of them I've spoken to them independently, and privately, and they're all willing to assist. They go home at times. They do go home at times.
what,
And
do that. What do you want from us? How could we? But you see, it's always about what you could give us. You know, it's really not what you want to do. It's just as I telling you, I want your program to not be like, just a talk like how we talking, but at least people really somewhere along the line that you will collaborate, you will share, it will, something will end up good during this COVID period, and giving us enough time
mhm.
to think and how we put things together.
Yeah, fair enough, Goatie. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Okay?
Not, no problem, bro.
All the best. Okay, then that's George Goatie Robinson giving us quite a lot. And thank you, folks, once again. And thank you for viewing. And don't forget to join us on Thursday for Talk Sports from 6:30 p.m. for another program. And then next Saturday, we'll be joined by Mr. Cecil Greenwich, the former sports coordinator. And then the following weekend, we'll have former West Indies wicketkeeper batsman Junior Murray to wrap up the month of October. Yes. So 2 more Saturdays, Cecil Greenwich next Saturday, and then Junior the Ninja Murray will be with us the final Saturday in October. That's the 31st. So until then, stay positive, test negative.